Hello and welcome to Sorcery 102. This is Bobby Ringsley, and as always, I've got Stu, my co-host. How's it going, Stu?
Yeah, howdy, it's Portland Stew here. Yeah, I'm excited for this episode. We're gonna talk about some tactics that aren't often discussed. I feel like, but are still an important part of the game. Because this is our pregame tactics episode.
Yeah,
So yeah, what's your pregame tactic? Beer or coffee?
caffeine. I'm a caffeine friend for sure.
Just kidding. It's
Yeah,
not
for
actually.
sure.
Our topic is the pregame decisions you make in sorcery, things like Mulligan, sort of the go first, draw first decision, and also just like I know for me, a big part of how I play the game is when I sit down, I find my pairing, we reveal our avatars, or I guess some events you have the full deck lists. I
Yeah.
haven't played in an event like that yet, but sort of how I mentally prepare. Okay, I'm against this avatar. I'm playing this deck. What am I going to be thinking about for my opening hand and initial setup of the game?
Yeah, so it's kind of like after deck building before the first card is drawn in the game, right? Like that's kind of
Yeah,
the space we're talking about here.
or before the
Um,
first card is played, because we are going to talk about mulligans, so it's drawn. But
oh, I get. Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking drawn for turn, but yeah, first card is played. Good point. Because you don't even draw on the first player doesn't even draw on the first turn. Yeah, first card
yeah,
is played. Um okay, cool. Yeah, so I that sounds like a good overview. And then I guess we're how much do mulligans matter is one of our first
yeah,
questions here. So
yeah. I thought that would be a fun, like, before we go deep dive on everything, like how much do like things we think we talk about other things mattering a lot, things like site placement. Like there's a million YouTube videos about how to place your sites, or like we've talked a lot about whether to draw a site for turn or a spell for turn, like all these other topics, but mulligans don't get talked about that much. Like how important do you think mulliganing is to your sorcery game?
wow. I think it's more important than I give it credit for most of the time. I think that um taking advantage of the fact that you can see 9 total cards at the beginning of the game is important. Like I think that if you have to the way I'm starting to try to think about it is I need a really good reason to not mulligan 3 cards, all 3 cards at the beginning of the game.
Hmm.
Um
Yeah, like it has
because
to be a perfect hand. Yeah,
yeah, it has
interesting.
to literally be a perfect hand. And that does happen. And like sometimes you're like, well, this does have the perfect site for this matchup. It has all my threshold, and it has the perfect turn 2 play. So I'm only going to do 2 spells. Like that. That does happen, right? But like I
Yeah.
try to find my current plan is try to find which 3 cards should go back, um,
Hmm.
and then or which cards can be improved. That's kind of how I've
Yeah.
been trying to think about it.
Yeah, that's it.
Um,
I mean, we're gonna do a deep dive on Mulligan later in the episode because
yeah,
I'm not sure if I agree with that philosophy, but I do agree that mulligans are a big deal. And
yeah,
like, I definitely many games I play at the end of the game, I'm like, oh, this mulligan ruined or made the game. Like I know in a recent game, I mulliganed a sinkhole because I thought I was playing against another tempo oriented deck, and it ended up being a very control oriented deck. And I was like, oh, that sinkhole would have been perfect if I'd kept it because I could have deleted their defensive site and gotten in. And like that was it was a sorcerer. So it's like sorcerer I was expecting aggro sorcerer, but it was actually like hyper value control sorcerer. Um,
oh yeah, yeah. I've had
so I guess
similar
that,
things, especially with
yeah.
sites.
And
I
that,
feel like sites are the ones I mostly feel bad have the feel bads on.
well, and I think so that brings us into our first big topic, which is the avatar reveal phase. And I think we wanted to talk, sort of reprise our discussion about archetypes.
Yeah,
Because I think you and I have kind of settled on 4 archetypes that we talk about all the time now.
yeah,
And the 4 archetypes are tempo, which is kind of your classic aggro equivalent. value,
Yep.
which is tends to be more control oriented, though not always. But like value in sorcery means that you expect the longer the game goes, the more advantage you'll have because you're playing something like sorcerer or archimago,
Yep.
or even pathfinder can be value builds. And then we've talked about in the past about sort of like the trick or combo archetype, which are like trick is Avatar of Air is the classic trick avatar where like you're planning to win because you do things on the board that uh, out position or out maneuver your opponent, and then combo is like classic corruptor town priest combo or something where you're trying to get a particular trick or combo to go off, and that's what's going to win you the game. And I feel like the fourth archetype that we missed in our original archetypes episode is quality, and we've been
Yeah.
talking about that a lot lately. Where like I think Elementalist is often a quality avatar. Persecutor is actually, I think, sort of like a very popular quality based deck
Yeah.
where sort of like you're just playing premium, you're playing higher quality cards and being able to use them more effectively, and that's your victory plan.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I agree that quality is one we missed for sure, and I think the trick combo. I'm trying to switch my brain, have it be like the trick is kind of an interesting one because like that's the Avatar of Air, but like that also is kind of a combo thing, right? Like in my head, 'cause
Hmm.
it's like you're comboing your avatar's ability with air sites and with defensive sites like Bottomless Pit and the Void. You're comboing those pieces together to create that thing. And I think that
Yeah,
that's kind of a way that we're calling it trick because that is kind of a tricky thing. But combo in our brains sounds like the Corruptor Priest, where it's just like infinite combo. I play my priest a million times and then I kill you.
yeah,
But
but
that's
just
not.
being Avatar of Air with a rolling boulder is kind of a combo on its own.
Yeah, it is exactly. All
Um,
right. Do you want me
and
to show
this
that?
all,
That
yeah, yeah, bring up our little chart. So, like, the reason why we brought this all up for this episode is this is the first thought I have when I'm in the pregame phase is thinking about where my deck lands on this spectrum and where my opponent's deck lands on this spectrum and how that informs sort of my game plan and my opening. And I think this is a fun, right? Because every deck has some level of each of these four things,
does, yeah.
right? And depending on, like, if I'm a geomancer sitting across from a persecutor, well, then I'm the value avatar. If I'm a geomancer sitting across from a sorcerer, well, then I'm not actually, like, the sorcerer is going to win the value game unless I get Garden of Eden.
Yeah. Yeah, so like that's actually an interesting point. Let's take an example. Let's take an actual example here. So like let's say um persecutor. Let's stick to your persecutor example you just said. So that is a quality deck. So it's kind of spreading this out this way
Hmm.
on the quality. It value is pretty low. It's going to be on the low side
Yeah,
for that.
no card draw, no like way to. If I lose steam, it's big trouble.
Yeah, you're in that
Like
first
maybe
little circle there.
there's some 2-for-1 potential, I guess, but
Mhm.
aside from that, that's your only value proposition.
Not a ton of it, yeah. And then the other one would be a tempo. Breaking things as I go here. Tempo. I feel like it wants the tempo, so it's kind of heavy on the tempo.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Not maybe
different,
not
like
as
my mono fire persecutors are heavy tempo, low trick. Like there's
yeah.
not a lot of combo stuff, but there are other persecutors that are heavier on the trick and lower on the tempo.
Yeah, so but like in general, the avatar wants to be high quality. It's not trying to get the value, and then you can kind of sway it either way on this tempo trick spectrum
Hmm.
probably. And you could probably push either of these in either direction and have it work out.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think for your build, we're talking about something like that,
yeah,
right? I guess maybe this is probably a little bit there. Is that right? Or is it even higher on
yeah,
the quality?
yeah. So I
Okay,
think this is like when you sit down, you're imagining this graph for your deck, and then kind of guessing what it might be for your opponent's deck, right?
right. Yeah, so then if you're sitting up against another quality deck, like you're sitting at what's another quality deck? What we were just saying, it was
Elementalist.
Elementalist. So Persecutor sits down against Elementalist. You're both quality decks. So
Hmm.
you're both going to have high quality cards. One's a tempo deck, and the other. So then you've got to pay attention to where you can get the advantage, right? So is it
Yeah.
through pushing your trick potential? Is it through trying to maximize your value? Is like how does that actually work out? And that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Where like you
Yeah.
compare your where you can get advantage on this spectrum, right?
Yeah, and things like, yeah, like, so against an elementalist, I'm more likely to keep Molten Mar, and I'm more likely to keep hard removal options because I'm expecting them to, like, most elementalist decks now are playing some sort of like ramp into high value minion strategy.
High
So
quality minion, right?
high quality, sorry, not high, yeah, I can't use the word value. High quality minion. So having a Begone in hand or a Holy Water at the start of the game makes a lot of sense. Whereas against, say, an Archimago or even like Pathfinder, right? Then I'm much more interested in fighting the tempo battle, and I'm gonna want to make sure I've got ideally three minions in hand that I can play all in the first 3 to 4 turns so that I'm matching that. Like, if the Pathfinder ends up being fire, then I'm matching the whole like Violent, your Violent dance and hopefully winning that. And if they're water, then I'm trying to get underneath their higher quality things faster.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then another example would be like I've got my witch deck right now is pretty heavily into the quality and the tempo side. So when I sit down against a a tempo deck, I need to realize that my tempo isn't going to matter as much, but my quality is. And when I sit down against a quality deck, my tempo is what's going to matter. And I think that that
Hmm.
is just like a really interesting way of thinking about it, and like how getting your mind around how you're going to win the matchup. Yeah, so I think that's
Yeah. Well, and I
interesting.
think the three, like value, quality, and tempo, have a little bit of a cycle on them. So, like against a value deck, you generally want to lean more into tempo than quality. Against a quality deck, you want to outvalue it, and against a tempo deck, you want to outquality it, right? Like Lugbog Cat is insanely good against a classic aggro tempo deck, just because it comes
Brick
down
wall.
on the same turn as red caps and whatnot, but can is a higher quality minion, right?
And if they're really lucky, it comes down the same turn as your Violent. Um,
Yeah. But then
on
against,
get.
say, yeah, against a more value oriented deck, Lugbog's not as important because they don't mind having to sort of trade inefficiently against your cat, or, things like that, or even maybe they're going to heal or whatever. So,
Right. Yeah,
I mean, I think
so
you always keep cat in an opening hand,
probably. But yeah,
but
there's probably places where you mulligan it, but maybe you don't. I don't know. I probably most decks that have cats in it, I'm keeping a cat.
yeah,
Can't imagine not. Um but yeah, so that kind of gets to the knowing your deck thing that we've talked about a bunch too, right? Where like and then it was one of the things knowing your archetype and your mechanics and stuff, how that fits together, and like just being prepared for that. And then I guess the knowledge of your opponent's avatar, that's kind of an interesting one, because we talked
yeah,
about that a little. We're talking about that a bunch here too, like knowing or predicting what your opponent's going to be doing, and that is knowing common archetypes and common deck builds for certain avatars.
yeah.
Um,
Well, like,
but
definitely the graveyard avatars are an easy example where, like, if you see Archimago or Death Speaker and you run Mismanaged Mortuary in your deck, or even Core Crematory, or whatever your best, if your best cemetery hate is in your Atlas, maybe you're triple mulliganing
your
your
sites,
Atlas
yeah,
just to hard put, like, if you've got a decent spellbook hand, you might just go 3 Atlas to try and dig for that answer to the graveyard avatar, or even like Yeah, this it gets really complicated. Like, so just mulligan decisions in general. Like, for instance, when you're against a sorcerer, if you have Garden of Eden in your deck, how inclined are you to hard mulligan to try and find that one of site that will win you the game?
I mean, like it depends, I guess. Like if if you're I don't know, it depends on what your game plan is against sorcerer. Most of the time,
Hmm.
my game plan is get the tempo advantage, and a lot of my decks are on that plan. Get the tempo advantage on sorcerer, and then win the game before their value gets going. Right? That's kind of
Yeah,
the way to do it. If you are yourself a value deck and you have no way of getting that tempo advantage, then maybe you do hard mull for the your deck no longer functions um, thing, because like that does matter.
yeah.
And I think that's an interesting question, because I think that sometimes my decks have um, Garden of Eden as incidental sorcerer hate, and sometimes it's the, well, I get this or I lose to sorcerer. And if it's the latter, then you're hard mulliganing for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah, I guess,
yeah,
do you have any, yeah, and then some of it, yeah, it's hard. So with the sort of avatar thought, is do you have any other like closing thoughts about how you, based on just that initial avatar reveal, how that affects how you're going to think into the game and how you mulligan around that?
yeah. That's interesting. So if I sit down against Persecutor and I know I have Gnome Hollows and um, all right, this is a better example. If I sit down against a battle mage and I know I have Gnome Hollows and Mountain Pass in my atlas, I'm going to be looking for those in particular, right? So like if there's
Hmm.
things that are particularly good against the thing against you, the avatar, that's what I'm looking for mostly. Um, but this comes down to something else we've been talking about a little bit, and I don't know if it's on here, but the the focus versus coverage deck building
Mm.
philosophy, where is should you be building your deck for, I'm going to cover all the possible threats, or is your deck built to, I'm focused on my strategy? And I think that
Yeah.
that matters a bit too. So like if your deck is on that focus side, then screw what your opponent's doing. It doesn't matter. You need to get your game
Yeah.
plan done. And that's what matters. If you're on the coverage side, which I think in terms of this diagram here, the tempo is your focus, and then the value and the quality are your coverage. Or I guess your quality is your coverage, really, and then value, yeah, helps with coverage or tempo. But it does that make sense? Um,
It makes it like there are so many except like every deck is a is a unique diagram on this, right?
yeah.
So it's not like a universal truth, but I get what you're saying as like a general idea.
So yeah, so I guess the point I was trying to make there was like when you're trying to focus your deck on your plan, that's where your mulligan decisions should come from. And when you're on the
Mm.
coverage plan, that's where your mulligan decisions should come from.
Yeah, and I think that transitions really well into like our deep dive into Mulligan philosophy, which I think, as much as it is about the comparison between the two decks, but it definitely leans way heavier on your deck and knowing your deck, and you're deciding when you're looking at your mulligan, you could be mulliganing because, yeah, because you have a wide deck and you're mulliganing for sort of a particular aspect of your deck that's there,
Mm-hmm.
or you have a very narrow focus deck and you're mulliganing around how do I make my deck do what it wants to do most effectively, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, I don't know, one of the first topics I wanted to talk about for Mulligan is the site, like how to handle site mulligans, and um, like particularly, I feel like most people play two element decks. I'm inclined towards mono element decks myself, but uh, because I hate having to deal with threshold problems. But two element decks are really powerful. Like it's so. nice to have the depth that playing two elements offers, and there's so much synergy between different two element combinations that it seems like, aside from Pathfinder decks, like basically every top tier deck is running two elements. So how do you approach uh, thinking about your site base just in terms of threshold? Like, are you thinking in terms of, I know, like, are you trying to get the threshold you need with those three sites, and is that sort of the top priority, or like the threshold you need for your deck as a whole, or do you just look at, these are the three cards I'm keeping, or however many of the spells that you're keeping. This is the threshold I need for my opening, right? Is that something I think like that happens to me a lot, even in limited, where it's like, okay, I've got three early game playable cards. I focus on keeping the threshold to play these three cards effectively, or do I think more broadly like, oh, this deck has triple threshold cards, and even though my opening hand isn't doesn't need triple threshold earth, do I need to mulligan one of my fire sites to try and get that extra earth for the long term plan? That sort of.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So from my perspective, a lot of my two element decks, what I've been focusing on right now is keeping one of them to like a actual splash, where it's single pip or like five
Mm,
mana is where I'm allowed 5 and 6 mana is where I'm allowed to have two pips. But like if I think of it in that way, and then I'm also leaning heavily on my element. So if it's an earth air deck and I'm heavily on earth with a splash of air, if I see an opening hand with four with more than one air threshold, I'm likely to put one back. Like I don't want more than one air threshold. I want
mm-hmm,
as much earth as possible. But if I see a hand of all earth, then I'm going to take the least valuable earth site and put it back. Um, I find myself a lot recently doing two spell, one site mulligans to try and improve my site quality heavily while improving my threshold and mana abilities and site placement stuff. So does that make sense? I might have just
yeah.
talked in a circle, but like,
No, I think that's exactly right though. Like, as a general mulligan strategy, like knowing your splash element is a big, like, if your deck's a true 50-50, then you're just trying to have a good balance in your hand. And I like focusing on playability of my starting spells. And so if I have three really good spells, I'll mulligan to try and get the right threshold for them, right? And if I
yeah,
have, like, one of the other things that I think, like, to circle back to your early point about always mulliganing three cards, I kind of disagree with that. Like, I do mulligan three cards quite often, um, because I have a lot of things I don't want in an opening hand, and I'm very focused on like the opening hand playing well in the opening. Um, but if you've got a good opener in hand, like, because you mulligan into not what you needed almost more often than you mulligan into what you need, right?
I,
Like, if
I
I've got
think
a two drop and a three drop, I'm not going to try and get a better three drop than the three drop I have in hand, right?
I hear you. I think where I'm coming from is I'm coming from the place of a lot of times, especially in because I'm coming from Magic,
Hmm.
you don't want to mulligan very often at all in Magic because you're going down a card. You're actually losing card advantage to
Mm.
um, to mulligan. So my brain says if it's fine, keep it. But that's not what's happening in sorcery, right? You're not actually going
Yeah.
down in uh, advantage. Like you're not losing cards to mulligan. So to me, the reason I'm saying mulligan three cards unless I have a good reason to is because I'm trying to force myself to have good reasons to keep my cards, not this
Hmm.
is okay. So like I
Yeah.
think it comes from a slightly different side of it where like for me what I need is a reminder to make sure my hand is actively good not it's fine. This'll do. Like this'll do is not what I want to be saying to my hand before mulligans.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal, like, especially for people coming from Magic, is that, like, Mulligan is a powerful tool to increase the quality of your hand, and there's not really a downside to it.
Yeah, and like the if you see Gift of the Wolf in your opening hand, and you know you have
Mhm.
4 Gift of the Wolves in your deck, and you're like, well, I do have 2 minions here. Like that to me, like you have a 2 and a 2 cost and a 3 cost minion and a Gift of the Wolf. That's a it's fine hand. Like in limited, that's a great hand. But like
Yeah,
in constructed, that's a fine hand most of the time. But is it really your game plan to cycle a Gift of the Wolf? Like, is that really like does that 2 damage matter in this matchup? So, like, if you're against Archimago and they're going to be healing and they're not going to have little minions, does that matter? No,
yeah,
probably not.
definitely ditch that gift, yeah.
Yeah. So, but like, if you're up against a deck that similar deck where you're going to be like fighting over card advantage, you're going to be fighting over this stays on the board. I use this as a removal spell and I get a card back, and like that's how you're using it, and you're guaranteed to get it that way. Then it might make more sense to keep. But I think that's again the matchup dependent.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well,
I
and I
feel like
think
I might
Gift of
have.
the Wolf is a great example of a card. It's like a really quality card that you generally want to have and play, but that I would be very inclined to mulligan in most matchups because it does better later in the game,
Hmm.
right? It's not it's not firebolts even or minor explode like or any sort of hard removal. Like it's such a conditional thing that for the early game it seems a little risky and you could get a better card.
Yeah, especially when you know you have 4 of them in your deck, right? And I think that's kind of the other
Yeah.
aspect of it. So um, when you see the elite, the 5 cost, if you see Earthquake in your opening hand, then you're probably more inclined to keep that Earthquake if you know you only have 1 or 2, right? Like
So this is yeah, I
that's like
mean
that's what your gut says. That's what a lot of people's gut says. That does not necessarily mean it's what you should do. It's but what you're gonna feel like, right? Because you have less of them in your
yeah,
deck. You're gonna feel like, but having a 5 mana do not gonna be able to play it until turn 6 or 7. Is
yeah.
that really worth keeping? Probably not
Yeah,
most of
that
the
is one
time.
of I mean that's literally the next topic I have on the outline is do you keep an earthquake? And as an as an example, like other things like even Archangel Michael maybe is a better place to start this. Like, do you keep Archangel Michael if he's in your opening hand? He's wildly powerful, like such like the highest quality of card there is, but it's 5 mana. Like that means it's a dead card in hand. Like especially if you're not a tower deck. Like if you're a ramp deck, okay, yeah, of course you keep a 5 mana bomb like Michael. But if you're not a ramp deck, like do you keep card just because it's an insanely good card? Like Atlantean Fate is one that I do keep because Atlantean Fate is just an insta win a lot of the time.
Yeah,
And so, like, I'll keep it if it's in my opening hand. I might even draw some sites for turn to play it quicker.
yeah. Depending on the matchup, right? But
Yeah.
I think that it has to do with how much your game plan in the again, it comes down to your matchup, right? Like because like
Hmm.
how much does my matchup depend on an earthquake? And most of the time, the answer is going to be it doesn't really depend on it that heavily. Like it's a great thing to have, but it's not going to be like I didn't draw that earthquake. 90% of the time, it's not that's not the thing that happens. I mean, um, what do they call it? Results oriented thinking lets us remember the times where we're like, if only I had drawn that earthquake. But in general, that's not really the right way to think about it, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with like that was early on in my sorcery, like moving, like getting good or getting better or whatever. I started mulliganing all removal spells at a certain point, which I no longer literally mulligan all removal, but I think it's so important to be proactive on the board, and there's so much trading that happens that I really want to have bodies I can put on the board in most decks in the early
Yeah.
game. And so I don't want to risk, because yeah, if you keep that 5 mana card and then draw 2 more 5 mana cards, 5+ mana cards, then you have 2 playable cards in your for the first like 4 turns.
7 turns.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not
yeah.
great.
So it can go like having a high number of cards. Like I really want all three of my starting spells to be 3 mana or less. Is my general philosophy.
I think that you and I both play decks that lean into that for sure. I'm
Hmm.
not sure that all decks lean into that.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
like water
and
water
certain cards
necro,
unlock it. Yeah.
like water
Yeah.
necro
Water
is one of those
Necro
things.
doesn't care.
Doesn't
Yeah.
want three. If it has three mana cards in hand, it's ditching two of them.
Yeah. And
Because
Scott,
it has
it
it
can
gets
always make a minion.
yeah, it
Yeah.
can always make a minion exactly. And I think that that's again kind of dependent on your deck, but in general, you and I play decks that are kind of built on that frame. So like if we look
Yeah.
at here, let me should I go to the other one
Yeah. Yeah.
here?
Let's look at some decks.
All right, so this is um, Summit. This is my Earth Air Witch deck, and this is the visual view here. And this is a good, this is like my mana curve visualized here. Um, oh, Sorry for the editing on screen. So this deck has 23 2 drops, 21 3 drops, 10 4, and 6 5 drops. So in this deck, if I see a 5 drop in my hand, I'm actually more likely to keep it probably because I know I have 44 2 and 3 drops in the deck that can get me
Yeah.
where I need to be. So like I'm more likely to keep that in this case. I'm more likely to keep that Archangel Michael in my opening hand in this deck because it's going to be good when I get there. It's going to be worth it.
And you're running ramp too, right?
And,
Like,
well, yeah, and I'm on Frontier
yeah,
Settlers and Landmass and
yeah,
Towers, but like
yeah. If I have a kettle top in hand, I'm definitely keeping a 4 drop in hand too, because that's a great like trajectory for my game, right?
yeah, and that's a good point too. You mapping your trajectory a little bit based on your hand matters. But I think let's see, my next one here was this. This is my Torrid Geo list. And I have a lot of 2 drops in it that kind of goes down on 3s and 4s are a little higher, and then it's a little bit flatter out here on the end. If I have a 7 drop in hand, I'm probably, or a 6, if I have a 6 and a 7 drop in hand, I want to get rid of one of them, right? I
Yeah,
want to push myself down onto this side where they are playable. But I think like it's, I was saying, it kind of depends on the deck when you are and are not wanting to keep them. Does that make sense?
yeah,
Does that align with your thoughts?
yeah. I agree. Like, it's very deck dependent, but I think it does all come back to your early game plan, where it's like if you feel like you've got a trajectory for the game with the cards you have, then those are good cards if it's a good trajectory. And you have to think about what's going to get you. Like, yeah, you're not going to hold expensive cards if you don't sort of see a clear way to get to them effectively doing what your deck wants to do.
Yeah, and I'm realizing this is a bad example because it's Geo and it gets to 6 every game. But
That's a great, like, that's why, right? Like in a Geo deck or a Pathfinder deck, you're much more inclined to keep more expensive cards early
yeah,
than like a sorcerer deck, or yeah, a lot of the other decks out there that might be slower to get their mana base up. You need to be playing your your lower mana cost cards for the first 5 turns rather than the first 3 turns.
yeah, and like the Savior deck where you're not you're gonna you got to tap to draw, tap to play, tap to draw, tap to play. So that's like turn 7 or turn 6, right, before you're getting to 5 mana. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that'll make sense. So where were we going with that?
I mean, that was just sort of the earthquake question.
Oh
I
right,
think
yeah,
I think we landed on it, which is the answer to all of this Mulligan stuff. Is it really depends. I think like the the thesis of this discussion is mulliganing well. It takes a lot of practice. It's all about knowing your decks, knowing the other person's decks. I feel like every video we do where we try and talk about tactics in a bigger way, that's where it comes back to is reps matter.
Yeah, reps matter, knowing your deck matters, knowing the meta matters. But like I think it's still valuable to talk about these things in a way because
Hmm.
it it starts that conversation and that thought process for me to like really what is my thought process? Think back on what my thought
Yeah.
process is and how can I improve that to make it make
Like,
those mulligan decisions better.
well, my other favorite mulligan debate is, do you keep a toolbox? Like, I am of the opinion where I generally don't keep toolboxes in my opening hand, which is, I guess it's not true. Like, I used to be 100% don't keep your toolbox. Like, it's a responsive card. I want proactive cards in the early game. Um, Now I'm a little more inclined to keep my toolboxes because like it's so thoroughly responsive that if the other two cards in my hand are, playable early game minions, I'll keep the toolbox for sort of, the flexible answer to stuff. But
Yeah.
if my other cards are not like early game ideal cards, I will still mulligan my toolbox. How about you?
I, I think that I'm usually keeping toolbox. And
Mhm.
here's my reasoning for it. And this is just again partially how I build decks, right? What a toolbox represents in the way I build decks is it says this is a wild card that can be a minion because it can pull out a penitent knight if it needs to. You don't want to, but it can be in a pinch. It can be a removal spell for something problematic. It can be a kill spell. It can be a card advantage piece or some tempo piece. It can just be so much. It's a full wild card that says, this is what I need it to be and is an answer or a question. If I need a question, this is a question. If I need an answer, this is an answer. If I need something that's going to kill them on death's door because I got them door and now have nothing, no way to kill them, this is a way to kill them. And I think to me, that's really valuable in how I build and play decks in sorcery. But I totally get your point because a lot of times what the way you build decks is if you're pushing like if I think about like your classic fire old school fire druid or your fire persecutor deck, it's go go go. It's not trying to. It doesn't need that flexible answer. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that that's kind of the difference. And I think that if I'm playing that persecutor deck, I am more inclined to throw the
Yeah.
toolbox back.
But even, yeah, 'cause I'm the same with common sense too. Like in my imposter deck, which I play a lot, which is much more of a not classic tempo deck. Like it's a deck that has a
Mm.
lot of optionality, many different things it could do. I mean, it's a pig deck, so one, I'm sort of hard mulliganing for squeakers, just 'cause
Just
that's what I
because.
want. But but also I always mulligan my common senses because they're just, yeah, they're such a responsive piece, and I want my response cards. I want to draw them eventually, but if I draw nothing but response cards, I'm gonna lose the game. And so I really want to have active
Yeah.
cards in my opening hand, even in, right, like in a ramp deck, right? Like I want the landmass in my open hand. I want the kettle top, right? Like I want to be looking for the cards that are going to push me into my plan. Which I guess
Yeah.
actually in squeakers I can common sense for a squeaker, which I do on occasion, but it
I,
feels bad to use a common sense for that.
yeah. 3 mana squeaker is a lot worse than a 1 mana squeaker. Um, but I think that it still comes down to the same point though, because that deck, what it's trying to do, it is more off the tempo, but it's still trying to press advantage with those pieces, isn't it? Like it's not trying to
Yeah,
answer, it's trying to ask questions. And the
yeah,
question is, do
yeah,
you block this squeaker? And like, right? And like, that's the question is asking. So it's not trying to cast common sense to go get a bury right now all
yeah.
the time.
Yeah, that's
I
very
don't know. That's the
true.
way I see it. That's the way I see it. And I
Yeah,
think that if you're on
and
that
I think
proactive plan, it makes sense to get rid of
yeah,
the reactive things.
and I think I'm kind of wrong. Like I think I'm overly inclined away from removal and flexible cards like that in opening hands. Like I think keeping removal is more reasonable than I often give it credit. Probably a
I
mistake in my gameplay.
If I see one of them, I'm not throwing it back. But if I see more than one, I'll start figuring out which one to put back, or you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
if which one to keep, I should say. Because you're right. If
I-
you, yeah,
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's well. Do we have any other big thoughts on how to mulligan and sorcery?
I think do it more is still my thing. Like I think I see a
Hmm.
lot of people keep things that are, we'll try it. And like
Yeah.
we'll try it is a valid thing when you're testing and when you're new to a deck, and that like that is definitely a thing, right? Like when you when I first build a deck, I'm keeping my first 10 hands almost no matter what, because like I have no idea how this plays. But like
Yeah.
but once you get in those reps, you start learning things, and then you start, if you're like, this is probably a mistake, I'm going to keep it anyway, just just mulligan what you think is probably a mistake, because you're probably right.
Yeah. Trust yourself.
Especially when you build the deck, right? So like, I don't know, that's my
Yeah.
thought. What do you think?
Well, so then we got to close out our pregame discussion with the other big pregame decision, which is if you win the die roll, do you always choose to go first?
Wow. um I can think of one time where I am always picking the draw. That's the only, I can think of one example where I'm always picking it. And that's if I sit down
What is
against the
that?
duplicator. If I sit down against the
Oh yeah.
duplicator and I get the choice, I am taking the draw. Every single thing.
Yeah.
Um, that's the
That's a good
only
deck.
that's like the only time I can think
Duplicator's
of.
dead now with the courts though. No one's ever
Yeah,
playing Duplicator now.
maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But like that's kind of like my thought. Like otherwise I want to, and like again, it's probably because of the type of decks I build, but most of the decks I build, I want to go first. I want that tempo advantage of just a sight.
And the statistics are pretty clear that like going for like anyone who's ever done like they're not sometimes the numbers are overwhelming. Like if you look at Pathfinder go first versus not go first statistics, it's like 75% win rate to 50% win rate. Like it's a huge deal. In other
Yeah,
decks, it's less a big deal, but like the wisdom, it seems like the data suggests you should always choose to go first. But I do think there might be times that's not the right choice. Like I think limited is an interesting example where if you get necromancer in a draft, you might actually want to be on the draw against a spell slinger because necromancer always wins if the game goes long enough in limited because you just keep getting bodies and
and being
it
down two
may
cards
mean
to a spell slinger is rough.
yeah, exactly. Like that, like the loss of tempo of going second might be worth it just to be closer to matching them on card count, so that you can have answers to their big threats, right?
Does that mean the inverse is true then? So if you're a spell slinger and you sit down across from a necro and draft,
Should you choose to go
should you
second?
then choose to go second? I think the answer is yes.
Uh, that depends on your deck. I think when the shoe's the opposite, because if you have a deck that you think can do really good with tempo, you might choose to go first because right, like if you have got a bunch of really good removal and you know you're going to be able to get sort of minions on the board early, like that's the best way. Like to beat necromancer, you want to beat them quickly in limited. And so I think you choose to go first if your deck feels like it's really good on tempo. But then if you just have kind of one of those decks that's just like, a
I
solid
have some
curve.
3 for 3s and some 4 for 4s, and
Yeah, yeah, like maybe you've got a good bomb or something, right? Like if your deck wins with good threats rather than good removal, then I think maybe you do pick to be on the draw against Necro just so that they've got less cards to use to remove your good threats,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
even then, I part of me thinks it's just always wrong to not take the play.
I kind of agree with you. So the overall data on from Summit says 52.2% of games are won by the person on the play. So the opposite of that is obviously 47.8%. So like that's a almost 6 point, or it's five, just over 5% swing. That's
Yeah, and that's with
huge.
Seer. Like Summit's all played with second player Seer.
It is, yeah. And this has gotten more polar in recent. The more data we get, the more polar this gets. Because for a while it was 51-49, and like at that point, that's within margin of error. But this is
Yeah,
beyond margin of error. This is now saying you are statistically more likely to win on the play. Um,
yeah. I think the answer is you should always take the play. Is honestly where I land on it. Like,
yeah,
yeah, I can't actually remember a game where I was on the draw and it felt like that helped me win. Right.
yeah. That's never the that's never the feel.
Right. Like it's sort of like you feel like, oh, I managed to like I got better cards or I had a really big play and that's why I won. It's not that you feel like, oh, I just out exhausted them on cards. But I mean, there are many games where that is how it feels like I won, especially in limited play, but also in constructed against non card draw decks. Is like if we're sort of like one for oneing and then I manage to get a two for one and then we're just like trading out cards and eventually they're top decking but I have three cards in hand like that, and I feel like by that point I've kind of forgotten if I went first or not. But
Yeah, I definitely forget if I went first or not a lot. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
I think that for me personally, I am always mostly going to be picking to go first. Like if I get the choice, I'm going to be going first. Like I think that's just the right call. But I try not to think about it as I don't think that the game is a coin toss. There are some games that it really is a matter of who won the die roll, and I don't think sorcery is that. Um
yeah,
my I don't know. I just like my that's my thought. And you can definitely win games on the play and on the draw.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, I totally agree it's winnable. I do think there are certain decks that care more than other decks. Like I definitely have a few decks where it feels like when I'm on the play, I feel invincible, and when I'm not on the play, it's a hard game.
does the
Um,
does the opposite ever happen where, or not the opposite, but like a step in the wrong direction from that ever happen where if you win the die roll, you feel like it's a good game, and if you lose the die roll, you feel like you lose?
the only time I feel like that is every limited game ever. Particularly in the bot drafts. No,
Yeah.
like I do. I've that happened to me recently where I went on a losing streak in limited summit and I lost all the die roll and all my losses and I was like, do I just lose if I'm not on the play? Um but I don't think that's really true. That's just how it felt. Because what's funny is I was on a winning streak before that, and I wasn't really registering whether or not I was on the play when I
Yeah.
was winning. But then when I was losing, I was like, "Oh, I'm just losing because I lost the die roll."
Yeah.
Right? Like I had that thought. Obviously, I didn't invest. I don't put stock in that feeling, but the
Yeah.
feeling did surface for a minute where I was
Yeah, the
like,
human brain is crazy like that sometimes, for sure.
"Yeah,
I do think that there was one deck that I felt that way about, and I ended up just scrapping the deck because of it. And I think that that's a good, if that is the way it feels, then it is worth just scrapping the deck. And I think that
yeah,
that's kind of where I was going with that point. Is like if you have to win the die roll to win the game, then maybe it's not a good
yeah."
deck.
Maybe that's not the deck for you.
So
I
yeah,
think that's
that's the
a
like
fair
high
point.
level. Yeah, I think that
Well,
that
cool.
covers all of what we had on the list.
Yeah, will be fun. Now we can really pregame our sorcery. I feel like we
Yeah.
didn't lean in enough on the pregame joke.
No, we didn't. This is still kind of a family channel. We don't.
Yeah.
Oh man.
um, yeah, well, thanks for watching. Let us know if you have any thoughts about sort of how to mulligan or any like things you do. My one pregame ritual I didn't mention that I try and do every time is I say, "Remember to look at the sites. Remember to look at the sites. Remember." I like little mantras. I've been trying to work on like a really good pregame checklist, and it has too many things on it now. I'm trying to like narrow it down to like, okay, before I start the game, like remember to think about what's under your feet. Remember to think about the blowout removals. And those are just the two reminders I'm just going to tell myself before every game,
Yeah.
because still 80% of the time I lose a game I could have won is because I didn't notice something about a site that was sitting there on the board, right?
Yeah.
Like there was a site that was visible on the board and I just didn't think like, oh yeah, with that site there because there were cards on top of it and stuff. Or it's because I forget to position my stuff to avoid getting blown out by whirling blades.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I actually just side note, I just downloaded chess.com on my phone, to the chess.com app on my
Okay.
phone, and I've been playing some chess and learning chess, relearning chess again. And I was thinking about chess in relation to sorcery, and sorcery or chess is an open or is a fully open information game, right? You have all the
Yeah.
information, it's all there in front of you, you can see it all, but sorcery is not. And for me, why I lose chess games is because I don't see what's right there in front of me. And why I lose
Mm.
sorcery games is also because I don't see what's right there in front of me. I'm weirdly good at predicting what my opponent might have in their hand, but I'm really bad at realizing that that aqueduct does sure let them drown my minion.
Yeah.
And like, and that's kind of thing, right? Like that's um, yeah, and I think that's kind of an important thing to remember. And I think it's a really important thing to think about all the time is make sure you're thinking about what's actually on the board too. Maybe that's something I should start telling myself is because I'm really good at thinking about what they might have and what they probably put in their deck. But for some reason, what's there in front of
Yeah.
me, just actually look at the board. Maybe actually look at
Yeah.
the board for once. Um,
Yeah. And
yeah,
like that's not truly a pregame tactic, but like using the pregame moment to
remind
like
yourself of it.
set your mentality for the game is an important part of pregame that we didn't really talk about because everyone has to find their pregame approach.
They do.
And maybe your pregame, like I feel like for some people, maybe the pregame is also about like attitude and maybe for you it's not about reminding yourself about a strategy, but like getting like chilling out a little so that you don't stress and mess up or you
Yeah,
know.
that's actually a good point because like I was also going to mention the golden rule, right? Like the golden rule is the thing in this game, right? And that it's something they
Mhm.
press and they've been printing on stuff more and more. But like the point is to have fun, and if it's not
Yeah.
fun anymore, then it's not worth it. So I mean, just like make just sitting down and like being like, I am playing a game for fun, can be
Yeah.
very important. Um,
Yeah, I really buy into that. That's my post game
yeah, yeah,
philosophy.
yeah,
Like I know this happens, like I know I've done it and it's happened to me many times where like the game ends, you lost and you say something like, "Oh, I just lost because I didn't make this because I messed up," rather than being like, "Really good play, like great job on your finish," right? Like and
yeah,
that's like and that's a very important to the game is like the way both players feel at the end of the game is what's going to decide whether this game continues to grow. And so like taking that post game beat to like make sure that you like say
yeah.
something nice to your opponent or like and you can even discuss like I like to do that too where I'm like, oh, great play, like, oh wait, can we look at like if I had done this would you have had an answer to that, right? And it
Hmm.
can be a fun engaging post-game conversation, but sort of promoting that positive feeling after the game ends
Yeah,
and
I
before it
definitely
starts.
agree. I think the compliment your opponent after you lose a game is a good thing to do for sure. And I think
Yeah.
that for me it's really easy to be like, oh man, I just got behind on this, or I didn't have that second earth threshold or whatever, and just kind of
Hmm.
focus on that. But like it, yes, maybe, and your opponent still did play the game well. They
Yeah.
couldn't have won if they didn't play well. So
Yeah, exactly.
wow,
Yeah,
we
and you can
rambled on for
totally talk about your mistakes as well, but
yeah, of
taking
course,
a moment to say something nice and acknowledge that your opponent did good.
yeah, for
And
sure,
same with when you win too.
yeah,
That's I always like thinking about yeah, it's all about that keeping the vibes good. That's the number one tactic. To go back to our very first video, the most important tactical tip is make this game fun for everyone involved by being friendly and
yeah. So we all get to keep
keeping the
playing it.
vibes good. Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do after I win a game is to tell my opponent what card had me worried for half the game. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's ever like damn, I was really worried that your amulet was gonna not let me play a lightning bolt on your face at the end of the game. I
Yeah.
was really
Or like
worried.
I feel like I so often will say something like, "Oh man, I'm so lucky you didn't draw this card that I know is in your
Yeah,
deck. Like,
yeah.
if you had just drawn that card, like this would have been a
Oof,
blowout
game
for you.
over.
Like, I got
Yeah,
lucky." And even
yeah,
though like I know, like yeah, it's like I played well, you played well, like, but still, just saying something like, "Oh, like you were playing to your outs really well, and you didn't hit your out, right? But like if
yeah,
you had hit that out that you were digging for, I would have been in trouble."
yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's just part of being friendly and keeping the game open, which I think is really important to if people stop playing, then no one gets to play the game anymore. And I'd like to keep playing it
Yeah,
for a while. So
me too. I want them to release more cards too. I want a new
soon,
set. that's
soon.
that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for watching,
Okay.
and leave a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, keep playing beyond the ordinary.